Welcome to another episode of Inner Mastery. This is Book Club edition. We are in the midst of a new earth. We're starting chapter 5, the pain body. And what I want to tell you is that whether you're reading this with us or you're just stumbling across this video, stop and listen. This is one of the most insightful things that I could ever share with you. And that is helping you understand that, your breath is involuntary. Your circulation of your blood is involuntary. Digesting your food is involuntary. And your thoughts are involuntary. Many of you are allowing thoughts to come into your mind that are not helpful, that are causing you to have stress in the moment, that are bringing more stress into your body, and eventually disease will set in. And so this is going to kind of take away the veil and help you understand how to get more conscious, more deliberate with what you're thinking, how you're thinking, and to set you free. So once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you know it, it can't be unknown. So enjoy. Hey there, Danielle Matthews here. I'm coming to you live from Florida. Today is Monday, which means it's book club day, and we are in the midst, probably maybe halfway exactly through, looks about right, a new earth, awakening to your life's purpose. It is a book by Eckhart Tolle. This is a book that, is making me think. I hope it's making all of you think. If you're joining me live here on Book Club today, let me know when you arrive. If you're not part of this and you're just stumbling across it, I invite you to stay on and to hear this. Hey, Charlotte, good to see you. Because what we were talking about in this chapter is going to be insightful for everyone. Learning where emotions are coming from, how they're running most of our lives and ruining most of our lives, and how we can get that under control. So, we have been talking a lot about the mind, the thinking mind, and he starts this chapter out by saying the greater part of most people's thinking is involuntary. And I want you to consider this, all right? Yeah, this is definitely heavy info, Charlotte, I agree. This is not a book for the faint of heart, but it's helpful to process with all of you. So let me ask you this. Do you consciously digest your food? Do you consciously breathe? Do you consciously circulate your own blood? Do you consciously think? I thought it was really interesting to point out that, for most of us, all of these things just happen. Yes, occasionally we take a deep breath or we're intentional with how we're breathing, but I would say none of us are intentional with circulating our own blood. We can't really do anything about digesting our food, right? It's a process that just happens. For most people, for most of us, the voice in our head also just kind of happens. That voice has a life of its own. Put a 1 in the chat if you agree with me. That voice does tend to just do its own thing, just like our digestion, just like our breathing, just like our circulation. Probably you've never thought about it in that way before, but this is exactly what happens. And you have to realize that, yeah, you agree. So you have to realize that your mind, hey Tina, your mind is a computer, okay? It is like, it's constantly taking in data from all of our senses, from what we're, just look at little kids, like how they mirror us, right? They're constantly like little sponges, they're taking everything in. Your brain gets programmed. And that thinking mind, okay, gets programmed. And what he was pointing out was that program, because it's based on past events, it actually causes you to then live your past out moment to moment in every interaction. This is what the yogis call karma. I think most people really don't understand karma, right? People mostly say, oh, what goes around comes around. Oh, it's like bad luck because you did something bad. Like, Tina, I know, knows this because she took Inner Management Mastery, my program. We talk about karma a lot. Karma is actually internal karma. It is the way that you interact and react to life. And most people interact and react to life from an unconscious state. The thoughts are just coming out. The reactions are just coming out because of our pre-programmed past, because of the things that our programmed mind, right, that computer, that database, went through in the past. And so it's saying, well, the last time, somebody did X, it hurt. And so now we're going to react with Y emotion, right? And we're going to yell, or we're going to get angry, or we're going to get jealous, or we're going to do whatever, because it thinks that that's appropriate. Is this making sense? That's internal karma. That's what in the East they call karma. It is actually the fact that you are recreating your reality moment to moment, interaction to interaction, based on how you are in the situation. The equation that I talk about all the time, right? Your external world plus your internal response is your reality. You cannot control the external world. You can control your internal response. And when you shift your internal response and you make it conscious, you stop having these immediate, unconscious, responses, reactions to things. You actually become conscious and deliberate about your thinking, about the emotions, about everything. That's where we're going, okay? We need to delete these internal files. Yes, Lou, it'd be nice. We need to Control-Alt-Delete, get rid of some of those, replace them anew, edit them, save edits, right? New version. That's what we need to be doing. I totally agree. And, most of us are possessed by our thought because we believe it is who we are. He talks about on page 130, he says, for thousands of years, you're not alone, right? For thousands of years, humanity has been increasingly mind-possessed, failing to recognize the possessing entity as not self. We believe we are our thoughts. I am here to tell you, you are not your thoughts. You are the thing witnessing them coming. You are not your digestion. You are not your breath. You are not the circulation of your blood. You are the thing witnessing this whole body operate in this world. All right? Through complete identification with the mind, a false sense of self, the ego, can come into existence. And this is the problem. Okay? This is what happens. So remember, thinking is a very, very tiny aspect of the totality of who you are. Right? Digesting food is a small aspect of who you are, the totality of who you are. When you experience peace from the mind, think about the moments that you've experienced peace. Let's go there first. Where are moments where your mind has been still? Your mind has been quiet. Eckhart Tolle puts forth in this book, he says, the moments where people have a quiet mind are the moments that give life worth meaning. This is why some people love golfing. Some people love fishing. Some people love sitting out in nature, going for a hike, hanging out with their animals. It's because for those moments, in those times, the mind is quiet. Yeah, meditation. Yeah, the mind is quiet. And so all of a sudden, you touch the totality of who you really are, the thing behind the mind. And it's beautiful. All right? Put a 2 in the chat if you've ever accessed that. If you've meditated, you've accessed it. I just had meditation, when was it? It was Friday, with my teacher, and he just said, the truth sometimes will just set you free. Like, there was only a few people in the room because, Thanksgiving, blah, blah, blah. And he was just speaking truth. He was just talking about the illusion of the mind. He was talking about past programming, actually, and the illusion that comes. And when you release the illusion, how peace enters, deep peace. And it was amazing because just through him saying it, and you could feel the truth of it from how he spoke it, the whole room became peaceful. He got quiet. We all got quiet. And he said, just close your eyes. And we went inward, and it was like that truth, just shining light on the illusion, reminding everybody in that room, hey, you're not your thoughts. Hey, drop them for a minute. Hey, let's access who you truly are, right? It brought a deep peace. And it's like, that's the thing that people are after. That's what makes life worth living. I'm glad to see many of you have access to that, right? There's various ways to access that. Now, have you noticed people that maybe haven't accessed that? They're so in their mind. I went to Jacksonville this weekend, and I was around a bunch of people, and it was really fascinating to witness how some people are so in their ego. They're so in their own thoughts. They're lost in their own world that they're not present to reality. Does anyone else experience this? Like, maybe you're talking and you can tell they're looking at you, but they're not listening. Like, you can tell they're thinking about something else, or, whatever it might be. Or they're just, they're phony. Like, they're giving this version of themselves that's clearly a mask. And you're like, who the hell are you really? Like, this is weird, like, you're not being yourself. Or maybe like a person is playing their role so well. So like a waiter or a waitress, where you're like trying to connect with them on like a human level and they're just like totally in their professional mode. And you're like, I'm not talking to a person. I am talking to like a professional ego. Like it's weird, you know? Like it's like, where's the person in there? Like I'm not touching your true self. I cannot access your true essence. And it's interesting to be around. He says, but first we must see our predicament clearly. That's the first step to going beyond it. Some people are so stuck in their phony self and the false self and the roles and all these different identities that they don't even realize it's a problem, right? They're playing it so well and they're like, I'm rocking life, you know, I'm getting great tips, whatever. And it's like, time out. Like, you're not even you. So anyway, he kind of dives into that a lot in this, but then we moved into talking about emotion and the birth of emotion. And he talks about, I thought this was very interesting. Emotion turns into the ego when you identify with it. How fascinating, right? Emotions are natural. We see animals have emotions. Animals express fear. Animals express pleasure. There's instinctual emotions that happen, but then there are the emotions that our ego identifies with and makes it your sense of self. They become I. I am sad. I am happy, right? The I has identified with it. And, the body is intelligent. That life force, the prana that's moving through you is super intelligent. And it reacts to what your mind thinks. Have any of you thought something to the point that like you ran it through in your head so many times it made you cry? Like maybe you were thinking about a pet that you absolutely loved and that pet passed away. And because you were just thinking about it, like there's nothing in here. You're thinking, your mind made your body cry. Has that ever happened to anybody? Isn't it wild to think like, whoa, your thoughts have that much power? It's the same as laughter, right? When you laugh, it also impacts your body. That emotion impacts your body. But usually it's a reaction to the mind. And it's interesting. I think page 133 was interesting. He says, this intelligence gives rise to instinctive reactions of the organism to any threat or challenge. It produces responses in animals that appear to be akin to human emotions like anger, fear, or pleasure. But they're instinctual. Like this morning I was on a walk in the woods and a coyote popped out. Like, I don't know, 25 yards ahead of us out of the woods. And it looked at us and I could tell like it had a response, right? Which wasn't like, oh, these are friends and let's hang out, or this is food and let's come after it. It was more like fear, like, this is potentially a threat to me. And so it took off, right? That's instinctual. It took off, and I'm sure 2 seconds later it was back to sniffing out whatever and like not even worried about where we were or what we were doing, right? Because it doesn't have the mind to ruminate on, oh my God, I'm so scared. Oh my God, remember that other time I got scared? And oh my gosh, last time I got scared, it went really, really badly and blah, 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 blah. Like the coyote doesn't have that mind. I was watching, maybe it was on Instagram. You know, you get fed these like random things. A lady that had like, she looked after turtles. And I didn't know this about turtles, but apparently turtle shells are like very sensitive to touch. And it makes sense, right? They sense a lot through their shell. And so she noticed that the turtle really liked it when she brushed his shell. And so she made this like brushing station where she just like put brushes in a certain way, like in an arc, so that the turtle could walk up to it and like basically brush himself. And you can see that the turtle is like totally in pleasure, like just loves it. This is instinctual, right? It's an instinctual pleasure because of what's happening to the physical body. This is very, very different than the mind, the ego getting involved with something pleasurable. Okay, it's an instinctive response like animals. There's a primal fear, like a primal anger that we all can feel. But the instant that you have a reaction in your thinking about it, this is where it becomes problematic. Okay? He says, emotions have a mental interpretation. And think about a situation like, let's say you send a text message to somebody and they have read receipts. If you're not familiar with that, it means when you text somebody, rather than it just saying delivered, it will say read at whatever time, right? If you text me and you have an iPhone, you can tell when I've read your message because it says read. let's say you texted somebody and you can tell they read your message and they didn't respond. What is your emotional response to that? Right? Because we get these mental interpretations of, oh, they don't love me. Especially if it's somebody that maybe you've just started dating. Like one of the girls I was with this weekend, she's just starting to see this guy. And so there was lots of text messages back and forth. And you could tell she was waiting, right? What's the response going to be? What's going to happen? Can you imagine if she said something and the person didn't reply back? Or it said read and there was no reply, right? You get into this like mental space, this interpretation of, oh, they don't actually love me, or maybe there was somebody else, or how come, they don't appreciate me enough? This is ridiculous. And why did they do this? Why did they do that? Like you get into this whole mental game about it. And this mental interpretation is like a filter. And the filter is telling you this is good, this is bad. This is for me, this is against me. I like this, I don't like that. And so it's generating a my out of the emotion. Is that making sense? So you do this magic trick where you make it personal. It's like, I've got glasses on my face, so it's a good example. It's like, okay, the person doesn't text back. Are you wearing the filter, the lens of, well, I'm not good enough. Of course they didn't. Or are you wearing the lens of, everybody always abandons me. No one's ever there for me. I should just quit while I'm ahead with this person and blah, blah, blah. Or are you wearing the lens of like, I forget what I've said already. I'm not good enough, or, my words don't matter, or I'm so stupid, I shouldn't have said that, right? It's this lens. It's this interpretation of the situation that allows for these emotions to become a problem. All right. He says, if I told you a story right now and I told you about how a car got broken into while I was where I was over the weekend, you'd be like, oh, dang, that's unfortunate, and you would move on. And if I said to you, well, it's my car, or if you're in my situation, right, sorry, I should do it this way. It was your car that got broken into, and I'm telling your story about how it was your car that got broken into, are you going to have a different emotional response? Yeah, you are. Right? Because we have made it personal. We take possession of it. If your car gets stolen, if your car gets broken into, if your house gets broken into, like, we're going to have a problem because of the mental interpretation of mine. Although the body is very intelligent, though, it cannot tell the difference between an actual situation and a thought. And this is where we get into trouble. All right? There is a buildup of energy, but since the danger is only a mental fiction, sorry, let me set this up a little bit better. So again, although the body is very intelligent, it cannot tell the difference between an actual situation and a thought. We were talking about this weekend virtual reality. I don't know if any of you have ever done VR, but there's a literal problem where people that are in virtual reality, like the metaverse, and these different places, and they're basically like move into a video game, okay? And they have a little avatar and they're running around, they're talking to people, and you can it's like crazy what you can do in these places, but you can like walk through walls, okay, because you're in virtual reality. There's actually problems where these people come out and they walk into walls, or they look down at their body and they literally don't recognize their body. They don't feel that they should be in this thing. They don't feel that it's themselves. It's little psychological stuff that's happening to people. But it's because their thoughts, their mind has been in this VR world. It's totally changed things. So what I'm saying is that you cannot tell the difference between thinking a thought and the situation actually happening. Being in a virtual reality versus reality. Like this, hopefully I'm drawing the parallel, I'm not confusing you, but basically the puppy situation, if you're thinking about your dog, and then you just start crying, your body thinks you've just lost your dog again. Okay, your thoughts are making you upset now, even though right now there's nothing wrong. You with me? It's kind of wild what we do. It's kind of crazy. So your body's constantly reacting to thoughts, and it builds up. And so this is what we're talking about. There's a buildup of energy, but since the danger is only a mental fiction, the energy has no outlet. Part of it is then fed back into the mind, generating more anxious thoughts, and the rest of that energy turns toxic and interferes with harmonious functioning of the body. So we're getting all worked up in our mind about something, And because we're getting all worked up, we're creating all of this emotional response in the body, which is generating energy, which feeds the anxious thoughts. Like, have any of you ever had a panic attack? Like, it's wild. It's like, it starts, and if you don't short circuit it, like, it's like all of a sudden you're feeding your mind all of these other crazy stories of things that can happen, and oh my God, all of a sudden you're just completely overwhelmed. And the body is literally having a panic attack. And it escalates. Because when you get all that energy moving, it escalates the thoughts. So it makes them more anxious. Plus, then you got all this stress in your system. And we all know when we got stress in our system, it wreaks havoc on our digestion. We get discomfort. We get fatigued. We get brain fog. Like, this is the problem. All right. So you're doing this to your body. You know, it's amazing. I know my boyfriend, he's like, it's toxic. Like, he won't get angry. He's like, it is not worth my time, because it's just like, when I get angry, I poison my own body. It's poison. I'm not interested. And so, you know, he's pretty even keeled because he just realized after so many times of doing it, it's like, I'm literally making myself sick. I was thinking about this weekend, and then thinking about watching movies. I had the same thought, and being careful about what we watch. Scary movies, trauma movies. Yes. I was talking with a friend of mine who was working with a woman who every night she watched like crime movies. So was watching homicides, was watching all of these things every single night. It is absolutely correct that your body does not know the difference between the emotion that the movie is making you feel and it actually happening in your life. So yes, you are literally stressing your system. You are digesting everything around you. A dirty home causes you to have to digest more. It takes energy, it takes life force. It causes a problem. The music that you listen to, the people you're around, the news, the movies, all of this, guys, is creating an issue. Hey, John, good to see you. So look, your body is very, very, very intelligent. And so yes, don't make it digest things. This woman that I was telling you about, eventually doing this day in and day out, every single night, it's how she ended things. She manifested illness in her body. It's like otherwise super healthy lady, but it's like she's putting her body into a stress state right before she went to bed every single night. Over time, you're going to break your body. Okay? Like, it's very obvious once this is pointed out. So thank you for pointing that out, because I had the same thought. Yeah, be really conscious about what you're watching. Same thing as if you watch uplifting stuff, you're going to get all those wonderful like endorphins going. That's why listen to happy music, dance, right? Like doing these wonderful things is good. We can, you can think about the negative, but we can also think about the positive, and move in that space as well. So thank you for pointing that out. I was gonna run through this, but I think we demonstrated it. Like there's, if I asked you right now to picture a dog, picture a cat, picture a thunderstorm, picture a hurricane, picture a gravestone, picture a graveyard, picture a funeral, picture a cross. Like all of these different images, just me saying them and you bringing them into your mind's eye can cause a very, like you have the lens of it's good or it's bad. So it can cause a response inside of you, just the thought of these things, just the internal image of them, when the truth is they're not anything. A cross is a cross, a gravestone is a gravestone, a dog is a dog. But we make the magic trick of making it personal, thus getting emotionally intertwined with it, and we create a mess. All right? And it's a really big problem when that energy has no outlet. I thought that was probably one of the biggest aha moments of this chapter, was like, so if I make an internal mess of things in my own head by going down, spiraling out of control and going down some rabbit hole, that energy has no way to dissipate. And so it's going to bang around in my own system. Right? What is the point of that? That's poison. Totally poison. So yeah, it'll strengthen or weaken us. Exactly, Lynn. Okay. I spent forever talking. We have 7 minutes left and I'm hardly into the book. All right. So let's do some highlights. So emotions and the ego. The voice in the head tells a story that the body believes and then reacts to. For example, just like high five, put a 5 in the chat if you've had your mind say any of these things. People cannot be trusted, right? This would be an example of such an unconscious assumption in a person who maybe in their most primordial relationships, parents, siblings, whatever, they weren't supported, all right, or didn't inspire trust. And so now they look at situations and they say people cannot be trusted. Or maybe your response is, nobody respects and appreciates me. Or, I need to fight to survive. Or, there's never enough money. Or, life always lets you down. Or, I don't deserve abundance. I don't deserve love. John says, yeah, that one for a long time, right? You got to pick these things up in you. I had one, I'm not good enough. Isn't it wild? Like that was something that I saw playing out again and again and again and again and again in completely different situations. Work life, personal life, relationships. I'm not good enough. And it's like, once I saw it, I was like, what? Let's shine light on that sucker, because that's been like this dark demon inside of me. And many of you have these. Yeah, it's like, it's crazy. These unconscious assumptions create emotions in the body, which in turn generate mind activity and or instant reactions. And in this way, they create your personal reality. That's internal karma. If you have the lens of I'm not good enough, it's going to follow you into every situation, and you're going to be seeing through a distorted filter the reality that's actually happening. All right? And many of us probably have many of these. Okay? They're pretty common, the stuff that gets programmed into us. So catch yourself. All right? When you're having these reactions, catch yourself. Okay? External world plus internal response equals your reality. Your personal reality is your emotional reaction. So let's get conscious and deliberate about how we're interacting and react, right? I was with someone yesterday, and we were talking about money, and she goes, money always flows to me. Like, I don't know what it is, but I got a great relationship with money. Like, it just always comes. And I was like, refreshing. Like, wow. Like, do you know how many people I work with where that's not what they say? All right? And there's just lack and worry and whatever. Like, that's something I dealt with for a long time. Because of my car accident, not being able to work, it was like this intense thing inside of me that was like, oh my God, income can end. Like there could be an end to earning, and then there's not enough. And so that was like programmed into my mind for a while. And so I've been trying to work through that, because it was very real for my body and a very real reaction. But now it's like, no, you're in an abundant world. Like things will flow. They'll always flow. There's a supply for every demand. Relax. You're totally fine. But it's interesting how you have to catch yourself again and again and again. And then to reprogram these things, this is what I do in Inner Management Mastery. We do yoga nidra, yoga therapy, release easy. There's so much. If you want to go deeper on any of this, you tell me. Let's get some of that attitude, Lou. I know. I mean, and if you had seen the woman that said it to me, you would have been surprised. Just if you were looking at appearance, you'd have been like, really? And then there's people that are really super well off and have everything, a farm and this and that. And then they tell me, well, there's not enough. I don't have enough money to do that. I can't do that. And it's like so funny. The lack mentality in someone that has a ton and the abundance mentality in someone that you would look at and say they don't have a ton. Just fascinating. Okay? The mind is crazy. All right. Oh, what else do I want to say? All of this was so good. All right. Let's talk about this. Differentiating positive emotions that are ego-generated and deeper emotions that emanate from the natural state of your connectedness with being. This was tricky. Did anyone else read this and then read it again and read it again? Because I was like, wait, positive emotions are the ego too? Like what? So let's read this. Positive emotions generated by the ego already contain within themselves their opposite, into which they can quickly turn. Here are some examples. What the ego calls love is actually possessiveness and addictive clinging that can turn into hate within a second. Anticipation about an upcoming event, which is the ego's overvaluation of the future, easily turns into its opposite, letdown or disappointment, when the event is over or doesn't fulfill the ego's expectations. Oops. Praise and recognition make you feel alive and happy one day, but being criticized or ignored makes you feel dejected and unhappy the next day. They have an opposite. There's polarity in all of this. The pleasure of a wild party turns into the bleakness and a hangover the next morning. There is not good without bad. There is no high without low. There is no day without night. There's no breath in without a breath out. Yes, I had to read this multiple times. Okay? Ego-generated emotions are derived from the mind's identification with external factors, which are, of course, unstable and liable to change at any moment. If your happiness is dependent on a partner and your love, you have expectations written in there. And in a moment, it can turn to hate where they do something you don't want. So, what can we achieve? What can we find that is true, like blissful inner, like positive emotion? He says the deeper emotions are not really emotions at all, but they are states of being. Okay? Emotions exist within the realm of opposites, like we just talked about. But states of being can be obscured, but they have no opposite. They emanate from within you as love, as joy, and as peace. And they are aspects of your true nature. Like what we all tapped into with my teacher on Friday, this little group of us just talking about truth and closing our eyes, we were tapped into like a peace that is like nothing else. It's literally like, you're like, oh, that's always there. Like that's the backdrop that is me. And when you access that, you will know. It is totally different than a moment of silence and solitude. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Because the next moment music can play and it's loud. This is what we're talking about. And he kind of generated a really nice story. If you guys read The Power of Now, I think it was, he talked about this in The Power of Now, like the duck story about how he saw two ducks like attacking each other, territorial dispute. And then the ducks went in opposite directions and both of them like shook and then went about their business. What he was basically saying was, if you don't do that, like the duck doesn't have a mind. Like, can you imagine? Just imagine this. If the duck went away from that fight, right? They little scuffle and then they turn away and the duck is going, I don't believe what he just did. He came in within 5 inches of me. He thinks he owns this pond. He has no consideration of my private space. I'll never trust him again. Next time he'll try something else just to annoy me. I'm sure he's plotting something right now, but I'm not going to stand for this. I'll teach him a lesson. He won't forget. Can you imagine if the duck did that? How many of you do that? Like, it's wild to watch your mind. Just something happens, which isn't what you want, and you're like it's like rapid fire, like all of these things. And you're just like, what just happened? Remember we talked at the beginning? Like, do you voluntarily breathe? Do you voluntarily think? Like, no, sometimes these thoughts just come out of freaking nowhere, and they're like, we have to stop. We have to pause and laugh at them and go, we're not going down this, right? We're not doing this. Yeah. So as far as the body is concerned, and this is key, the fight is still continuing. If you're letting all of those words come through, the fight is still continuing, and the energy it generates in response to all of those thoughts is emotion, which in turn generates more thinking, more of all of that insanity, and this becomes an emotional thinking of the ego, and it reaps all sorts of problems. All right, so, it's helpful to just think about the duck, right? Next time that you have a reaction to a phone call or somebody did this or whatever, and your mind's going, think about what the duck would do. Can you imagine a duck doing that? It's like, no, turn it off, shake it off, get the energy out of your system, and reset yourself. John says, that transcendent peace is awesome. The first time I was like, where did everything else go? Yeah, exactly. When you've experienced that, when you've gotten to that state, like I just did a private yoga nidra for a student of mine, a friend of mine, and we came out of it, and he called me and he said, what's happening? He said, everything's quiet. Like, my mind is quiet. My body is so still. Like, everything's peaceful. And I said, yeah. That's what's there behind all of the anxious thoughts you're having, behind all of the worries. That's what's always there. You're just been too engaged with the mind to feel that. All right. And in one yoga nidra section, it's like, it just takes you there. It's so powerful. So anyway, what are we going to do? We are going to read probably the next 10 pages. So in my book, that's page 139. Let's see. Oh, there's not like a normal stopping point. Maybe we stop at how the pain body feeds on drama. Yeah, so that's the top of page 148. I'll put it in the chat. I'll put it in Telegram. And I'll see you guys back here noon next week. All right. Lots of love to all of you. Bye, guys.